Before we start, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It really helps. The National Anthem is the third song from the album Kid A, an album that has a world of its own. Everything in its right place opened the door to that world by glitches, looping, saying you're okay when you really aren't, a sound that was never heard before in that band in any of the previous albums. It made us feel completely different and it made us feel uncomfortable with the comfort of the voice singing the song. Kid A opened the door and took us right into the digital womb of a person, non human like, being born in the darkest chamber of the universe of Kid A. Well, the national anthem is basically the world outside human bodies, chaos, traffic, sirens, and it makes it feel like the band Radiohead is back after two tracks of looping and synths. And maybe the roots of that chaos is that Tom York composed this song when he was 16 years old. He wrote the bass line sitting somewhere around his hometown. And this is particularly interesting because this song or this bass line was sitting in a drawer for the longest of times, waiting to come out like a dormant predator. This is the song in which Radiohead reminds you that after all the glitches, all the pads, all the new sounds and distorted voices, they are still a band that can get together and instead of guitars using chaos and disorder as their main weapon. Let's start with the bass line, the instrument in which all the song is built around. It's aggressive, it's repetitive, and it's almost animalistic. It never really gets you anywhere. It doesn't develop and it doesn't wander. Just keeps repeating as if someone was constantly punching a bruise with the same pace, the same attack, and the same strength. He wrote this when he was a kid, but somehow he managed to capture that teen angst in the form of a bass line and brought it together way after at a time where it was required. A fun fact is that both the bass and the drums were recorded during the OK Computer era, planning to release it maybe as a B-side from the best album in history of music, according to many websites. But in the end, they decided it was too radioactive and it would probably suit another period after OK Computer. Little did they know that it would come sooner than they would expect. Like in many other Radiohead songs, like one of my favorites from The King of Limbs, Bloom, the whole song is built around the bass line. And the funny thing about this is that every single instrument evolves except for the punching bass line. But if we listen to Tom's voice, if we listen to the horns, if we listen to the sounds in the background, they're all constantly changing, constantly evolving, but the bass line remains stable, remains static, remains the same. We always say in this channel that when we listen to a Radiohead song, we actually have to wonder what instrument Johnny Greenwood is playing. In this one, he actually samples a radio transmission, feeds them into the track, and layers undismarked notes, wails over the top, which is an unhinged combination of technology and static sounds like the world is having a panic attack. Similarly to the two first songs from Kid A, Tom's voice is modulated, in this case through a ring, sounding slightly distorted or distuned, but not as bad as in the first two tracks where we just listened to Tom York's voice becoming a robot, basically. The drums are dry, clipped, almost punk. There's no warmth, there's no change, there's no soul, just insistence. And then the song is taken to a whole new levels with a sound that we never really heard from Radiohead before, the horns. The horns add this layer of chaos as a brass band crashing into a wall. The reason that it sounds so chaotic is that Tom York's request was to make it sound like a traffic jam with a lot of cars all tooting their horns. They didn't want any harmony, they didn't want any structure, they just wanted to sound as nerve wracking, as anxiety driven, as chaotic as possible. A fact about the song is that I don't really like the live version of it. Of course, I love the sound of the bass, but for me, what brings this song together and my favorite part is when the horns come in the first time and when then one of the horns take their own route and starts going absolutely crazy. When they're performing it live, they all add chaos with their guitars, with the drums, with the modulators, but I feel like those horns are missing. Would love to see Radiohead bringing a philharmonica into stage to perform the horns on this song. The inspiration for these horns, Charles Mingus, specifically Town Hall Concert, which Tom York describes as just fucking chaos, the most formative record of the whole time. He and Johnny conducted the session like madmen. Even Tom York broke his foot jumping from one place to another to direct different musicians. The running joke in the studio was just blow, just blow, just blow, just blow. And that's what you really hear. You hear like freestyle jazz with no leash on. You hear a sound that has never made before, a brass riot, a musical riot shield shattering in slow motion. The national anthem pretends to be a normal song for like 40 seconds with drums, bass, rhythm. You think something is coming, a verse, a chorus, a shift, but nothing shifts, everything just accumulates. This is a skyscraper that doesn't grow taller, it grows heavier. The bass line loops with obsessive force. The vocals appear and disappear like someone is trying to shout through a crowd. The horns erupt, multiply, fracture. York said that the band wanted the song to sound like angry people trapped in a lift or traffic, the claustrophobia of bodies and noise pressing from all sides. MTV famously called the horn section a brass band marching into a brick wall, and that's exactly the sensation, perpetual collision. Halfway through, each brass player goes into their own universe. One spirals upward, other spirals downward, one screeches sideways. Nothing sinks because it's not supposed to sink. The structure isn't linear, it's vertical panic. Layers stacking on top of layers until the weight is unbearable. There's no breakdown, no drop, no resolution, no exit. The song simply collapses like a system failure. Despite the name, the national anthem isn't about patriotism, it's about suffocation inside modern life. Where in everything in its right place, we can feel desperation. In Kid A, the song, we could feel isolation. In the national anthem, we could hear overstimulation, a different type of drowning. The bass line is obsession, a thought that you cannot forget about. The horn section is the world around you screaming its demands. The static and radio signals are the information rammed into our ears, and the buried vocals are your voice, tiny, swallowed. The irony is brutal. York sings, but the song refuses to hear him. This is what it sounds like when the world is too loud for you to exist inside it. And critics at the time, many hated it. Nick Hornby called it an unpleasant free jazz workout. Others called it a racket, a gimmick, a pileup of squawking noise. But that's exactly the point of the song. It's supposed to be too much because modern life is too much. The song is not a political or psychological anthem. It's the sound of you losing your identity or trying to maintain a stable self while every frequency in the world bleeds into your skull. The bass is your internal monologue, the horns, everyone else's, and the static, the word you didn't ask for. The track becomes unbearable because life often is. It pushes you until you're not sure whether you're overwhelmed or simply numb. A panic attack disguised as groove, a dance track that refuses to let you dance, a rock song without a center or chorus, a jazz freakout without freedom. It's like the sound of a world spinning too fast and the horror realizing that you've adapted to it. And after all this chaos, when the song finally ends, the silence feels holy, like escaping a building that was caught on fire. Thank you very much for listening to this analysis, and we'll see each other very soon with How to Disappear Completely from the same album. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.